Hello and welcome to today's episode on how the internet works. Our subject expert is Sunil Saxena, who is an author and journalist with over 3 decades of experience in print, new media, social media, media education, and media research. I am Monica Verma. Let us quickly look at what we are going to understand and learn in this episode. We will see how billions of computers are connected across the world to create the internet. We will see how information is transferred on this network across thousands of miles, how you watch videos on YouTube or connect with your friends on Facebook sitting in your home or office. We will understand how we are able to send out emails, how it is transferred in a flash across continents, or how we are able to chat with our friends who are in your city or even in another country thousands of miles away. The internet is rightly defined as a network of networks. It was developed by the US Defense Department in the 1980s to communicate information. But today, it has grown much beyond that. What is even more amazing is the rapid pace at which it has grown and continues to grow. It has changed the way human beings communicate, work, or do business. The two components of the internet. Let us try and understand how this network of networks works. The best way to do so is to visualize the internet as a system that has two components. The first is the hardware or physical devices that make the internet, and the second is protocols, that is, the commands that make it work. The first device that you need to access the internet is a machine. It can be a computer, a laptop, a desktop, a mobile phone, a tablet, an e-reader, or any other device that can be used to access or transmit content. This device, to be part of the internet, needs to be connected to other computers. The connection is made either through a physical cable that connects your laptop to your telephone network, or through wireless hubs that can transmit the signals to central points from where the data is transmitted on physical cables that run below the surface in cities, or through cables that have been laid several kilometers below the sea surface or bounced off satellites so that it reaches its destination quickly. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? In between, there are several other devices that make data transfer possible. The most important of these is the router, which is placed between your computer and the transmission line. This device acts like a traffic policeman. It directs your page request to the right address. Then there is the server, which is a high-end computer on which data is stored. However, to reach the server, your request has to go through several other servers known as domain name servers or DNS servers. These servers are like post offices. They direct your request to the right servers. The second and equally important component of the internet is the protocol, which in layman's language means a set of rules that the machines follow to decipher and execute commands. Without protocols, the machines would not know what to do. There will be no communication between computers, and all data transfer would come to a halt. This is why the word protocol is such an important part of internet terminology. It lays down the rules by which machines connect or talk to each other. The two most important protocols on the net are Transmission Control Protocol, that is TCP, and Internet Protocol, that is IP. The entire internet rests on these two key protocols. Another important protocol is what we call Hypertext Transfer Protocol. You must be familiar with its short form, which is HTTP. Every web address starts with HTTP because it is this protocol that defines how text has to be transferred on the net. IP addresses. To transfer text from one computer to another, it is important to know their address, and this address has to be unique. You can't have a situation where two computers have the same address. The creators of the internet therefore came up with a computer naming system which is called the IP address. In layman's language, the IP address is the number allotted to a computer that is connected to the internet. The IP address is unique and no two computers can have the same IP address. Each IP address is made up of 4 octets whose value ranges from 0 to 255. Thus, the IP address of Google is 74.125.45.100 and that of Yahoo is 68.180.206.184. No other web entity can be allotted this IP address unless Google or Yahoo vacates them. These IP addresses are the machine names of the servers on which Google and Yahoo data are stored. Each time you search for Google or Yahoo, you are directed to these servers. It is impossible for human minds to memorize these long strings of numbers separated by dots. So, they recognize sites by the names. Thus, Google or Yahoo is a domain name while the IP address is their machine name expressed in numbers which the computers use to talk to each other. To get a better understanding, you can compare IP addresses to door numbers. When you search for a term on Google, your computer sends your query to the IP address of Google because this is the computer where the Google website lives. The same happens in the case of Yahoo. The IP addresses are allotted by the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, popularly known as IANA. It has built a hierarchical system to ensure that there is no overlapping or duplication of numbers and that there is a record of each IP address being used on the net. IANA has also set up regional bodies to look after different continents. Thus, for India, the body that allots IP addresses is Asia Pacific Network Information Center, also known as APNIC. It is through this organization that internet service providers in India like BSNL, Airtel or Reliance obtain the IP addresses that they then allot to their Indian customers. There are two kinds of IP addresses: permanent IP address and temporary IP address. The permanent IP address, as the name suggests, is allotted to those machines which are always connected to the internet. These are mainly servers that host websites. The temporary IP addresses are allotted to those devices that log on to the internet once in a while. For instance, when you log on to the internet using a dial-up connection, your laptop is assigned a temporary IP address for the duration that you browse on the net. The next time when you log on to the net, your laptop is allotted another IP address. In contrast, if you have a broadband connection, your computer is allotted a permanent IP address and all communications from your computer are mapped to this address. The temporary IP addresses enable internet service providers to serve a large number of users because not all IPs are in use all the time. You must remember that the number of devices that are getting connected to the net are increasing every day, and each device has to be allotted an IP address when it is connected to the net. In fact, the internet administrators today are faced with a situation where the number of available IP addresses is likely to get exhausted. They have therefore been advocating a move from the current version of internet, which is IPv4, to a higher version called IPv6. However, only a part of the world has moved to IPv6. The rest is struggling to upgrade its machines. Flexible network. Now that you have understood the concept of temporary and permanent IP addresses, let us try and understand another interesting feature of the internet. The internet is not a fixed network. It is a flexible or floating network that continues to grow and shrink every second. The internet shrinks dramatically when it is night in the US or Western world because millions of individuals who are temporary IP addresses switch off and go to sleep. It may similarly expand when a major national or international event occurs, like World Cup soccer, and hundreds of thousands of new individuals from different parts of the world and on different devices may log in. Domain names. We earlier referred to domain names while talking about IP addresses, but it is important to know a little more about them. A domain name is the website name allotted to an individual or organization for a fixed tenure, which can range from 1 to several years. It has two parts. The first is the name itself, which can be Google or Yahoo, and the second is the extension, which can be .com. The full domain name by which a site is known includes both the components. Thus, the domain name of Google is google.com and that of Yahoo is yahoo.com. The allotment of domain names is done by domain name registrars who are appointed by the International Committee for Assigned Names and Numbers. It is also the final authority that decides domain name extensions. The most popular domain name extensions in the initial years of the internet were .com, .net and .org. These extensions were known as TLDS or top level domains. The International Committee for Assigned Names and Numbers has also allotted top level domain names to different countries. India has two official domain name extensions, .in and .co.in. So if you want to register an Indian domain name, you can use an Indian registrar and you can have a domain name like u.in or u.co.in. The Indian organization that manages the .in names is in registry. It was set up in 2004 and since then it has registered almost 6 lakh Indian domain names through Indian and international registrars. Web address. Another important part of the internet is the web address. The web address always starts with HTTP because it is this protocol that lays down the guidelines for transmission of information on the net. It is followed by the letters www, which stands for World Wide Web. Then comes the domain name, which is the name of the website. This name is mapped to the IP address allotted to the website. Once you enter the web address in the address bar, you start the information transfer process. However, for this to happen, your computer must have a browser, which is a software that can read the internet language. Without this, your machine, even though it is connected to the net, can neither read nor display web pages. There are several different kinds of browsers available in the market. Most of them can be downloaded directly from the net and installed on your machines. The more popular ones are Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, and Safari. Packet transmission. Now let us understand how the information transfer happens. The first step is the transmission of web address that you have entered into the address bar. The address that is transmitted is not domain name, but the IP address of the website to which you want to connect. The IP address is sent by the router or modem attached to your computer to the server of your internet service provider. This server reads the IP address and routes it to a domain name server where the IP addresses of hundreds of websites are stored. Two things can happen here. One, the domain name server can identify the IP address and route your request to the website immediately. Two, the domain name server may be unable to identify the IP address. In this case, it will route the IP address to another domain name server. This process continues till the path to your website is identified. The software installed on the website's server reads the information encoded in HTTP, notes the IP address of the computer from where you sent the request, locates the page sought by you, and starts the process to transfer this page to your computer. The technology used to transfer this page is absolutely ingenious. It is remarkable that the page is not transferred as a single file. Instead, it is broken down into hundreds of small electronic packets of 1000 to 1500 bytes each. Each packet has a header and footer, and on this the IP address of your computer and the packet contents are entered. The packets are then ordered to head for your computer. The packets obey the order and start streaming towards your computer. However, they don't do so in an orderly file or one behind the other. Instead, they locate the least crowded pathways and take different routes to reach your computer. In this way, they beat traffic congestion and reach your computer quickly. Your computer browser then reassembles the packets, recreates the page, and then displays it on your monitor. The entire process from the time you give the command to the time the web page is displayed on your computer monitor takes a few seconds, even less on fast networks, thanks to this technology which is called packet transmission. However, on slow networks, especially on dial-up connections, you have to wait longer for packets to arrive. Similarly, when you request for large web files like video files or audio files, the time taken by the packets to arrive is longer. This is because the number of packets go up when the files are large, and therefore they take a longer time in reaching your computer. You often get a buffering message, which means that the packets are continuing to stream in and the full file can be displayed only when all the packets have arrived. Sometimes you keep waiting for the page to download on your screen, but instead, after some time, you get a message page timed out. This happens when some of the packets fail to arrive on time and the browser cannot reconstruct the page. When this happens, you have to make a fresh request for the page to be served. The same technology is used to transfer your emails or voice chats. The entire conversation is broken into small packets and then transmitted to the destination, where it is reassembled and relayed in the same form in which it had been created. This is what makes the internet and the packet technology it uses so unique. It can transfer content which may be stored as text, audio, or video files. Hyperlinks. Another important element that connects millions of pages stored on websites and makes internet a network of networks is hyperlinks. These short pieces of code are like roadmaps that computers use to locate and serve pages. Like the web address, the hyperlink too starts with HTTP, the protocol that carries the information transfer guidelines. The other elements that comprise a hyperlink is the domain name of the website and the web address of the page. It is impossible to estimate the number of hyperlinks that populate the net. A large website like Wikipedia.com has millions of pages. Each page has a web address, and on each page there are several hyperlinks that connect the text or images on the page to other pages on Wikipedia or to sites outside Wikipedia. The hyperlinks are used to connect single words, group of words, images, graphics, advertisements, audio files, video files, and even full pages. Without them, there will be no internet because there will be no way to connect the billions of pages that make the internet. It is important that the web address stored in the hyperlink is precise. Even a small error like a missing comma or a wrongly spelt word will disrupt the communication path, and the computer will be unable to locate the page. Instead of serving the page, it will serve you an error message of page not found. Client-side software. Sometimes the web browser loaded on your machine is unable to read the content that has been requested. This happens when the content has been created using a software that is not loaded on your computer. For instance, in the initial days of the net, the Windows operating system did not have a copy of Indian language fonts. The browser was therefore unable to reassemble the fonts in a readable format, and you only saw junk on the page. The user was therefore required to install a copy of the fonts to read the page properly. The same happens when you want to read a page that has been stored in the PDF format. You cannot read it unless you have Acrobat software. Flash pages are another example of content created with software that is proprietary. You need to have a copy of Adobe Flash to decipher them. This software is known as client-side software and needs to be installed separately on your computer. Recap. In this episode, you learned how the internet works. You learned about internet protocols, the rules that define how different forms of content will be transferred from one computer to another. You understood the importance of IP addresses and how they ensure that the identity of every computer is unique. You also learned why the internet is not a fixed entity but keeps changing its shape and size every second. Most important, you learned about packet technology and how each page is broken down into tiny packets of 1000 to 1500 bytes before being transmitted. The technology is truly unique when you consider that the packets are able to locate paths where there is no traffic congestion and are able to reach their destination computer in quick time. You also learned what are hyperlinks and how they connect words, images, graphics, or advertisements. Similarly, you learned the importance of client-side software and why it is important to have different kinds of software loaded on your system. We must realize that the internet is a very large and complex entity. What we have done today is to give you a layman's view of the key elements of the internet and how they make it work. We hope you enjoyed this episode and will now look at the internet in a fascinating way as you now understand its magic. That is all we have for you today. Take care and goodbye.